And welcome to the Carolina Weather Group for this Wednesday night. It's July 20th, 2016. I'm James Brierton. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're joining us live, we look forward to your interaction throughout the hour on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're joining us on your podcast as you're out and about, thank you so much for taking us with you on the go. We got a pretty full panel tonight, and our guest tonight is a friend of the show who is back for his second time in 6 months. So I guess we didn't scare him off the first time. So if nothing else, that was an accomplishment because he's back tonight. Veteran journalist, now retired Steve Smith will be telling us about some of the weather highlights from his long career in journalism, in broadcast, and we'll get to him in just a few minutes as he is enjoying what I can only assume was another sun-filled day of retirement in Hilton Head, South Carolina. But I know the guys want to catch up with you first at home. They all had a very weather-filled week, I'm sure. And let's start in Charlottesville, Virginia, with our friend David Reese. Good evening, David.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, we've actually had a few storms around here. We had one about, say, 15, 20 miles north of town that produced some a nice downburst that did a fair amount of damage. Also had some reported hail with that. And then the real activity was actually yesterday when we had golf ball-sized hail about 35 miles north of the city. We had pea-to-dime-sized hail about 15 miles west of the city. We had 2 rounds of pea-to-dime-sized hail about 35 miles south of the city. So it's kind of all around the city of Charlottesville. So the city itself lucked out. Our neighbors, however, did not. That said, my James and my last station, WRBL in Columbus, Georgia, they had a nice little microburst happen on Monday. You can see that James put up some of the pictures there that the chief meteorologist down there, Bob Jeswell, he's been on the show before, that happened near Lake Bottom in Columbus, Georgia. One of the TV stations there was actually completely knocked off the air because of these storms and all the trees that fell on trees on top of cars. And they actually saw another storm this afternoon. That's one of the more telling pictures right there, just how massive the trees were that fell due to the extremely gusty winds. One of the meteorologists there was actually looking outside, and he'd captured about a 3-second video clip of it actually starting. And he ran inside. And James, I think there's one picture, just scroll through those real fast just to show the ceiling tiles from one of them, because the ceiling tiles were actually kind of blown off. There you go. That's from when the door was open, and the ceiling tiles just kind of got lifted up when that wind came rushing in, and they tried to close the door. And my friend there, he was trying to close the door with all his might, but is having an extremely tough time doing so because the winds were so strong. So they're cleaning up from that. Some of my neighbors to the north, west, and south of us are cleaning up. Other than that, we're looking hot this week, upper 90s, close to 100 degrees officially in the forecast. There's that video, maybe a little choppy, but you can see it just kind of open there, and then all of a sudden the dumpster lids fly back, and it's pretty startling. Let's see, what was his Twitter handle is @cnickel, spelled just like the coin, WRBL, and he has a video on his Twitter page. So pretty impressive stuff there, and the big story this coming weekend will be the heat.
And David, I think, if I remember correctly, I think that station that was knocked off the air, if it's the same one we're talking about, WTVM, I think it was, down there.
Yes.
They did a really cool thing last night. They did their 10, 11 o'clock news on their internet stream because they didn't have any other source of getting it out. And I saw Sean Reynolds, who's news director down there, posted some stats this morning. It looks like they're advertising The Bachelor more than storms. But he posted some pictures about how their numbers were like up 5,000% than what they usually are for a typical night. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, definitely, and it just shows that weather is king, and once things happen like that, that people tune in and want to know what's going on.
What about you, Ricky? How's the weather up in your neck of the woods?
Well, one word kind of sums it up: hot. Our 7-day has 90s on it for the next 7 days. But I've been thinking about it, and the more I think about it, it's summer to me. I don't know. 90s are hot, but it's not like, mind-boggling, let's shut down everything kind of hot. And I get it if you don't have air conditioning. Of course, a lot of people in our area don't because we live in the mountains. But it's summer-like. It's about 3 or 4 degrees above our average. Usually we're around 86, 87 degrees this time of the year. But hot, sticky, humid, chance of some afternoon storms, typical summer-like weather here in the Tennessee and North and Southwest Virginia valleys.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go from northeastern Tennessee to northwestern North Carolina and check in with our friend Scotty, who I think was telling us he just got caught in a thunderstorm.
Yeah, we've got a lot of thunderstorms going on here in the foothills. So if I go out, it's because it's the lightning. Looking at radar right now, just about, I don't know, about 8 or 9 miles to my west, a pretty decent thunderstorm. So we'll see if we get knocked off because of the lightning. But yeah, scattered showers throughout the area the past couple of days. Actually had a few gusty thunderstorms roll through McDowell County just to our west just a little bit ago, creating some damage and some closed roadways over there due to trees and power lines. So just another average summertime afternoon here in western North Carolina. Just like Ricky, we've been in the 90s for a while and looking to go into the mid to upper 90s this weekend with a few locations probably towards you, James, of reaching 100. But thankfully, I am going to be at the beach this weekend, so I'm going to be by the ocean, chilling and enjoying the heat.
100 degrees outside will mean it'll be at least 90 degrees inside for me. Maybe I'll get my air conditioner working one of these days. Let's go down to the coast, Charleston, South Carolina, and our friend Shay. How is it down there on the coastline? Is Scotty got some good weather to look forward to, Shay?
Yeah, actually, I think after tomorrow we have a weak cold front dropping down through the region right now. And we'll probably get some of the fizzling out of that tomorrow. This is that time of the year where fronts come to die in the southeast, and then we'll get our heat wave, just like everyone else along the southeast region. Starting this weekend, our sea breezes will come back up again. But looking forward to tomorrow being a little bit on the cooler side in the upper 80s to maybe near 90. I mean, that's a big break for us to actually hit only 90 degrees. We've had some pretty decent thunderstorm activity Sunday, Monday. We escaped that yesterday and today. Most of that stayed to our south, but some interesting outflow boundary collisions today and some really unique cumuliform structures in the morning time. This is that time of the year I absolutely love to see cumuliform banking along the coast in the morning, prime for water spouts. Haven't seen any yet, so waiting to see if we catch some of those. But other than that, just kind of rolling right through the summertime.
Hey, Shay, Shay, if you could order up a couple of those water spouts while I'm down there, that would be great. I'd love to get some videos of that.
Which beach are you going to be at?
I'm going to be going to Topsail Island in North Carolina. So
Topsail, North Carolina.
Yeah, so just push them up that way, and I'd appreciate that.
Okay, sure.
Does your weather machine reach that far, Shay?
We can adjust the sensors to show some rotation for you if you want.
That's what those weather flow things do, right? They can actually generate the water spouts.
Yeah.
Well, Shay, I was kind of down in your neck of the woods this weekend. I was in Savannah, had some nice storms roll through, and then I started off the work week on a business trip that brought me to Memphis, Tennessee, and also to Tupelo, Mississippi. So here is my scrapbook, everybody. This is me in front of the childhood home of Elvis, because that's what you do when you go to Tupelo, is you take a selfie and try to catch Pokemon at Elvis's house. And here's dinner last night. Some ribs from Memphis. It was great, and I caught a really great image today on radar. I don't think I would have been looking in Memphis if I had not just come out of there, but you can actually watch the thunderstorms collapse over Memphis, and it was a perfect 360-degree outflow from those storms caught on radar there, and I just thought that was really cool and wanted to share that out on tonight's show.
That's really cool, James. That looks like a classic urban heat island symmetrical outflow boundary. Very, very unique.
And I think as those storms collapse, those winds also affecting the suburbs of Memphis there, if I recall, seeing images on Twitter of storm damage similar to what we saw in Columbus. I don't know of its exact severity, but I do know they had some effects of those storms as they collapse, and I think I see David shaking his head. Well, let's get into tonight's topic. We want to talk about this man's long storied career, his weather highlights, or whatever accolades he wants to share with us. He is a former professor of mine. He is a former news director of many. He is a former ABC News bureau chief, and he is a mentor to everyone he has ever met. Joining us from his home in Hilton Head, South Carolina, Steve Smith is back with us. Steve, how is the weather in your neck of the woods?
We got a lot of those thunderstorms that Shay said went south, so we've been watching some great lightning displays. Trying to take some video. I didn't think to try to put it on here, but we got some good shots last night, and it's kind of neat to go out over the water and watch it. And Sunday we had a particularly heavy day, and got blown off the golf course Sunday, unfortunately. But we did have a good lightning show. So that's kind of what it's been. I mean, it's pretty normal, really, I think. It's warm. I'm hot, but as everybody says, it's summer.
And I think that's a great perspective. With everything nowadays, it seems to be some extreme or another. At the end of the day, it is summer, but that's, I guess, what makes it so exciting, right? It heats up, and then we watch the effects of that afterwards. I know the guys. Go ahead.
4-hour news and weather for that, though. You know, we're gonna hype the temperature. I guess.
You've had lots of experience covering all sorts of things, not just weather, but growing up, weather was something that was in your household, if I recall correctly, and something that you learned a lot about from a young age.
My dad was a meteorologist, not on television or anything. He was in the Army. In World War II, he was trained at MIT to be a meteorologist and did that in the Philippines in World War II. He was an engineer for his life, but he was always extremely interested in the weather. He died in 1977, so he didn't really get a chance to see a lot of the technological advances that we've seen in the last 40 years, which would have fascinated him. I mean, that picture you just showed over Memphis was really cool. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, and I've seen a lot of stuff. So yes, he would always try to explain it more observationally. He would look into the sky and predict what was going to happen. So it was always interesting to me to see. And I've seen a few tornadoes up in Michigan, and obviously been in several hurricanes. I never chased tornadoes. We did chase a few hurricanes, though.
Is there anything from your childhood, any weather event from your childhood that really helped develop that news bug for you?
Well, in the mid-50s, there was an outbreak of tornadoes that went through north of Detroit in the Flint, Michigan, and for all the warnings on television. They came on, and I was a kid. I mean, I was 7 or 8 years old, and it was a little bit worrisome. To hear all the warnings and tornadoes coming and all this kind of stuff. So I remember distinctly sitting in the living room watching about a 10-inch black and white TV set and seeing them do tornado warnings for Flint and Clio and cities like that. And I didn't have a real perspective on distance. And back then, I mean, from my perspective as a kid, and I think this is important when you're covering weather, as a lot of you guys report on the weather, kids don't have a perspective on things. And for all I knew, a tornado in Flint could have hit me, and I was 55, 60 miles away. And so that I think made a great impression because it scared the hell out of me, to be honest with you.
Well, I know they love to send reporters out into the weather because it is the thing that kind of grapples everyone's attention. And of course, this probably won't come as a surprise to you, but I've dug up some of your old material here. A young you reporting in Atlanta. Do you remember any particular weather stories that you went out to cover that really stand out in your mind from the start of your career through the later parts of your career?
Well, I was in Florida for 6 years, and we were always kept a close eye on the possibility of hurricanes. We had a couple of tropical storms. We got a lot of rain, a lot of flooding from that tropical storm Agnes, I think, and I may be wrong about that, but your memory plays tricks on you. But it was early in the season, and then the first hurricane that I was really involved in covering was in Savannah. Well, I think it was Hurricane David in Savannah, 1978, maybe. You guys know which one that was? It was a Category 1 when it went over this area.
1979, but I'm going to give credit to Google on that one.
Yeah, okay. It was David, right?
Yes.
I wasn't in it, but I was covering it from Atlanta. I was coordinating coverage of our news team that was down here from our Atlanta affiliate, then the ABC affiliate in Atlanta. So that was the first hurricane that I was direct. That's a picture of it there?
Yeah, Cat 5 storm, according to what I've just pulled up very quickly. Does that,
Yeah, but
does that
not when
ring
it
familiar to you?
made landfall. It had diminished considerably. It might have been a 2 as it got close, and you can see because it was being that track. It would have been cut off. Wasn't over water. It was kind of edging up the coast there. Interesting shot. But Savannah came in right here in the Georgia Bight, which is pretty unusual that we'd get hurricanes here. Hugo was one that was unusual to come straight in like that. As far as what my experience was covering hurricanes for about 35 years.
So when you say that you were in Atlanta coordinating coverage, can you explain to folks what that means?
Yeah, I was the assignment editor at the time at WXIA in Atlanta, which is now the NBC affiliate. And we had 2 teams of people down here in Savannah, or in the Hilton Head, Savannah area. And they were reporting. It wasn't anywhere near as extensive as it is now. This is before CNN, before the Weather Channel, before any of that sort of thing. So they would come down here, and they I actually remember the reporter's name that I worked with closely was Sharon McClama, who's now out in nice pictures, James. Thanks a lot.
I'm taking after you, by the way, and I'm growing out the beard.
Yeah. Well, that's cool there, yeah. But Sharon was down here, and we were on the phone a lot with Sharon about how we got coverage back. We had there were no satellite trucks, so you had to feed effectively on landlines. So we fed on landlines out of Savannah, and I don't even know where that. I guess that was at the Olympics, the snow pictures.
And I'm going to actually leave those pictures up on the screen for just a second because, as technology would have it, I can hear you, but I've completely lost the dashboard. So I'm just going to let that B-roll roll for a moment.
Lovely shots of my reporter days. Nice glasses, huh? You guys like those? Jeez.
I think they're coming back. They're coming back into style now, I believe.
Are they really? That's too bad. That's a shame. So is Harvest Gold. Our Harvest Gold appliances are here too, right? Hey, who is that? James, do you know that young woman that got from school? I can't remember her name.
Oh, putting me on the spot now. No, but I could go back probably to the original footage and look to see if it was logged.
Yeah. Okay. That was ABC engineering there, fixing the picture on them. Yeah, that is in Sarajevo. Those snow pictures. This was actually a joke. This thing I'm doing right here, but.
Steve, when you were out or when you were coordinating hurricane coverage, any stories that stand out, some of the reporters have said or the people who were out there said?
Well, I remember that we were in Hurricane George looked like it was going to hit New Orleans. It ended up going through farther east over into Mobile, but we spent the night in the Windsor Court Hotel, and one of the reporters with us, this was with ABC, her setup up on, we were up on the 6th or 7th floor, was to put one of the mattresses on the bed, on the floor, and took the other half of it up. So she said if the glass broke, it would hit the mattress first. That's how she slept at night. I remember distinctly that same storm driving into New Orleans. I guess it was on I-10, and we were the only car going south, and there was a long parade leaving, going the other direction. And I thought, what's wrong with this picture? And we did things like we rented a flatbed truck to drive the satellite truck up a pond so that it wouldn't get, the truck won't work if the exhaust gets plugged up. So we didn't want the truck to drown out so we could still feed. A lot of people put their trucks up on the overpasses of the freeways, but that had its inherent dangers too because they get blown over if you're in the wrong spot. So we were content to get it up 4 feet off the ground and had about 6 feet of clearance from where the exhaust was so that we could still do shots, although we never did use it because it didn't flood at that particular storm. Obviously, Katrina was a lot different, but fortunately I was out of it by then. And then we went to Mobile. We put our reporter hip deep out in the water and that had flooded downtown Mobile. I remember that pretty well. I remember the same storm actually went over Key West first, and I was in Miami working it from there, and one of our producers was with the satellite truck out in Key West, and the guy didn't want to put his dish up. It's a brand new truck in Miami. Huh? He didn't want to put his dish up, and we had a big discussion about saying that we would pay for it, doing faxes to say, yes, we'll pay for your dish if it flies into the Gulf of Mexico, that kind of stuff. There were all sorts of things that happened. It was about getting the shots out, really, and being on the air.
How fast after storms were you able to get out? Were you ever stuck there after one?
I wasn't, because I was only in like half a dozen myself where I was there, and nothing really big. I was not in Katrina. I didn't go to Hugo. Didn't go to Andrew. Worked them all, but a lot of that I coordinated from Atlanta. So we didn't really have much of a problem getting out. You had a problem getting around right after the storm, but they got the main roads cleaned up fairly quickly, so that wasn't too bad.
Now, in addition to anything that the local reporters would be doing that you had sent down from your station, I imagine they also maybe would have some obligations with network or other affiliates. How does that play into the logistics of trying to coordinate with those people so far away and so remote?
Well, it wasn't really that hard, because at the point where you had a satellite truck and you could do shots all the time, you just coordinate IFBs with the people that are, if you're doing a shot for, like in Atlanta, we had stations that wanted live shots out of the station in Washington, the station in Jacksonville, those kinds of places. And so we would just schedule the times and do it. One of the things I remember, and I may have mentioned this on the last one of these things we did, but we were able to, in Hurricane Hugo, we planned the coverage of that, knowing that it was probably going to hit in the Charleston area. And we sent our helicopter to Somerville. There was a hangar in Somerville where they spent the night. Well, what was it, Sunday night that Hugo hit? As I recall. Who remembers? A Sunday night, I think. And so we sent our satellite truck over there, and we positioned ourselves south of the eye, knowing that was the area where less likely to have problems. So we approached Charleston on 17, but by 4 o'clock that afternoon, the helicopter, our helicopter reporter, and he was also the pilot, Bruce Arian, was over the Isle of Palms, and we did live shots starting at 4 o'clock that afternoon, and we were the only ones there doing that. The locals were really, being a local station, I remember the news director at the ABC affiliate there told me that when she started working there, she thought, oh, how exciting it would be to have a hurricane hit your town. And after I talked to her a couple of months afterwards, and she said, don't ever wish for that. She said it was the biggest nightmare. A lot of their employees lost their houses. They were flooded. She said it was the horrible experience. But for us being there and doing these live shots over Isle of Palms, you remember the iconic picture of the twisted bridge. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember that.
It was the big bridge to Sullivan's Island. Yep.
Yeah. You remember that, Shay? Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was sitting in the water up at an angle, just just broken off of its hinging, and there goes David's AC unit. Is that right?
Uh-oh. Well, you remember, so that was that aerial shot of that. The first aerials we provided and fed those to the. We were an NBC affiliate, so we fed it to the NBC. I remember the CBS assignment, the national assignment manager called me from New York and said, "Hey, can we have some of those?" And I said, "Sorry, those are only ours." And also the sailboats. You remember all the boats that were up on the island that were dried out? It was a huge mess.
Yeah, but emptied out the entire. Isle of Palms Marina emptied out across the ICW onto Goat Island.
Right.
And, yeah.
But he's doing live shots above this, and the first pictures, the aerials anybody'd seen anywhere. So that was really a coup to be able to do that. But that was a technological thing as much as anything else, and knowing that we could do line of sight microwave from the helicopter to the satellite truck, and then obviously satellite it to anywhere. So all the Gannett stations used those shots, and they were more than happy to do that. So that was sort of a merging of technology and journalism to be able to show that stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to a point you just brought up. So technology-wise, nowadays, and I apologize, I think my video's down, but I'm afraid to troubleshoot too much because I know we're live and the audio's working, so I'm going to keep on trucking and let Google take its course. But nowadays, you take a phone, you go someplace, you're live, as long as Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint are still up. But to get those pictures, you had to beam those pictures back down to a truck, and then that truck had to relay them, and there was a lot of thought and planning that had to go into all that.
Yeah, well, that's what we did. That was our job, though. That's the job of the people that are in the back room. We have to plan that and position the people put them in the right place where they're close enough to get to where they need to be, but they're out of danger. You have the primary thing you worry about is somebody getting hurt, and we were very proud of the fact that nobody ever got hurt. And that was the main thing. I mean, that was stupid, to get. You don't want to do stupid things. I see people doing some pretty dumb things, and you've seen, in the tornado coverage. I'm surprised that there hadn't been more trouble. I think that who was it? Mike Bettis, who got rolled around in his car. Their car got flipped over on the tornado once a couple years ago. Yeah, it makes for great video, but dead is dead. And so as managers, people in charge of, you really have to respect the welfare of those folks. And you may be crazy about doing stuff, but on the other hand, no picture is worth that.
Now, I would imagine on both your local and your national levels, when you were working, there were times where you were trying to cover something else and the weather got in the way. Did that ever play into your logistics and make trying to cover another event all that much more difficult?
Probably, but I don't really recall. You know what I mean? The weather gets in the weather gets in the way when you're trying to cover the weather. I mean, what happens? We used to have a saying that when it was in the air, it was weather. When it was on the ground, it was news. And so the two would merge. I remember we were in Nashville. There were some tornadoes that went through Nashville that would have been in the late '90s, and we got pretty close to those, just sort of by accident, kind of being in the right place at the wrong time, if you will. But that was pretty dicey for folks. But in terms of getting in the way of covering other stories, the other stories that would get in the way of would be outdoor stories, and a lot of times, if it's an outdoor story and things are happening that aren't so good, you're kind of hoping for the weather because that tends to put a lid on civil disobedience and things like that. When it rains, it's like a good rainstorm to quell a riot. I mean, it'll shake things up pretty quickly, stop things.
Or a snowstorm in the south, that'll bring everything to a screeching halt.
Well, that's a whole different deal. Yeah, we had those too.
Weather is obviously a big thing, especially for local stations where they might be on the air for a really long time. Can you give any insight into the behind the scenes, the hours, the endless hours that might go into covering a weather event?
Well, it's just like how one of the most important things about prosecuting a war is that you got to make sure that the people that are doing the work are well fed, get some rest, and you respect the fact that they're working really hard and acknowledge that they're working really hard, and that it's an unusual condition. And then at the point where you have to let off the gas at some point, maybe not in the middle of it, but when the time comes later, you have to recognize that these folks really went over and above during the times when they had to. I mean, it's a little tougher nowadays because it's so constant. I mean, I came from an era not even that long ago, but we only had an hour morning show, an hour noon show, an hour and a half from 5:30 to 7, or 5 to 6:30 or whatever, and then 35 minutes at 11. Well, now it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and local stations, the changing landscape, and they've got 3 hours in the morning. I don't know how they fill it all. Drive me nuts, but it's they don't have that many more people either, to be honest with you.
Are you glad you're retired at this stage and not having to deal with those added hours or social media or the added dynamics that go into everything now?
You guys can answer that question.
What did you say? I have to answer that question?
You guys can answer that, yeah. Are you kidding? Yes, I'm delighted.
You don't have to worry about reporters taking selfies at scenes of crimes that maybe they shouldn't be taking selfies at.
Well, it's just different. I mean, things are always. This is a dynamic. Communications is a dynamic activity, and I can remember when I was younger than all of you, and in Fort Myers, we had a visit from an NBC correspondent. We thought, oh, this is really cool, and he's complaining about the NBC Nightly News has to be a theme show, and how you can't get on the air, and how there are too many younger people involved in things, and they just don't get it, the old ways, and you hear that all the time. And my feeling about that is it's just change. And James, you remember I told you change is constant, and when you were students, the one thing you had to prepare yourself for was change. Accept it. Go with it. I mean, you have to basic principles of it, but understand that especially technological things cause a lot of change. And I mean, when I started, we were shooting film. You guys probably don't even know what that is. And you'd shoot I remember when they were covering the Vietnam War. You'd shoot film, shoot a story on a Tuesday. It would get flown to Japan, to Tokyo. The film had to be processed, and it was lucky if that film made it on the air Wednesday. Usually, it was 2 days later. And that was the genesis of satellites back in the '60s, in the '60s and early '70s. It's just change, and you need to adapt to change. When we didn't even have a newsroom computer when I started at Channel 11 when I came back as news director in 1986. So one of the first things I did was we need to computerize the newsroom, which of course to you guys sounds. I mean, everything's being accessed now on chips and edited on the computers, on your phone, wherever. But we didn't have a computer. Typewriters, film, the teleprompter was basically a conveyor belt. Anybody remember that, when you put the scripts on a conveyor and you had a camera that looked down on them, and that's what the teleprompter was. It was a camera, and somebody sat there and pushed the button and controlled the speed of that conveyor belt.
From the age of the actual AP wire as well, I believe.
Oh yeah, bang, bang, bang. We kept them in a closet. They were so loud. Hey, when we did ball scores, for like doing sports on the air in the '70s, we used menu boards like you would use for Hamburg, $1.59. So it was Detroit 3, New York Yankees 2, and those were just little plastic letters. You plugged them into a cloth menu board and you put a camera on it. It was pretty rudimentary compared. First character generators I saw were in the late '70s. But you just have to adapt it.
You're talking of all these changes. What do you think is probably the biggest change that has helped the business evolve that you have seen in your time in news?
Well, it used to be what we would call the cost of entry, meaning the cost of doing the business, was very expensive. That's not the case anymore. I mean, these little cameras. I mean, my phone shoots better video than than many generations of video cameras. So the cost of entry has come way down. Everybody can get involved in it. So technologically, the technological part of it is much less expensive, which allows you to do more and maybe to communicate more effectively. But the flip side of that is you get a lot of people who aren't trained in the ethics of real journalism and the importance of accuracy all the time. I mean, just look at this. Look at all this dust up about the speech. On Monday night, what's her name? Speech, Trump's wife, and plagiarism. And it's like, is somebody not paying attention here? I mean, that's it's a big deal and not a big deal, but it's a big deal because it's that there really has to be some standards for the way we operate, and you can't people. You get a lot of people now who have access to get seen or heard or whatever much more cheaply and much more easily, but they tend to the mediation of the message is going away. So now you get just a bunch of people saying what they want to say, whether it's true or not. and or whether they validate it or not. I think so. The technology has been good on one hand because you get more people more involved. You find out things quicker. Well, let's face it. You know, the business that you're in is to keep people safe, right? Isn't that the primary responsibility of doing the weather? Is to get it out there so I know that if I live at the corner of I-85 and I-285, where I used to live for a number of years in Atlanta, and a tornado was heading that direction, you know, I better get in my basement. And that's your primary responsibility. But you can't be wrong about that. You know, and the technology that allows you to pinpoint where these storms are going, and now I understand that a half-mile wide tornado is a very wide tornado. You know, as opposed a lot of tornadoes aren't, you know, but yards wide. I didn't know that when I was 8 years old. So it becomes, you know, that ability to pinpoint where these gust fronts are and where the squall lines are and all that, and where you're going to get 60 or 70 mile an hour winds. That's really important. You can't screw that up. You guys are all dedicated to making sure that doesn't get screwed up. But, you know, there can be people out there who will, you know, try to make a point by hyping things. And I think we have to be on guard for that sort of thing, because you don't want to. You have to put things in perspective, because people will get very, very anxious about what's happening, especially with bad weather. And I think that some of the hype about this has made people over anxious about things. There are times to be really worried about it, and there are times to, you know, like we get today. We have severe thunderstorm warnings just about every day in the summer, right, Shay? Down here, I mean, we're about every day. Oh, it's a severe thunderstorm over Jasper County or Beaufort County. Well, it's a thunderstorm. You know, and some are a lot more severe than others, and I think that sometimes they make more a deal out of it than it really is. Now, I have great respect for lightning. I play a lot of golf. I go and I use the boat a lot. I fish a lot. Lightning worries me a lot more than tornadoes, frankly. Tornadoes are pretty easy to, you know, get out of the way of. Lightning, you don't know. And I've done too many stories about people who were, you know, who didn't take the right necessary precautions about lightning, and that is something to be concerned about. What are the stats on that, you guys?
14 this year so far.
14 lightning deaths?
Yeah, 14 lightning deaths, mainly in the southeast. Florida, I think, has 4. Tennessee 2. Georgia 2. It's sort of spread out. South Carolina is the only one that doesn't have any deaths yet, but just the other day, there was some serious lightning storms going on, and there was a lot of people at the beach. And I was actually out at Fort Moultrie in Charleston Harbor catching a shelf cloud coming across, and there was a lot of lightning arcing out into the harbor, and people were just parking and going out in their beach chairs and rafts and going out swimming in the water. And I'm just standing there like, wow, you know, I can't believe this. So some of the news peeps here were. You know, they were posting about it on Twitter. They were taking pictures with their webcams, their webcams on the beach, and then tweeting about it, saying, you know, come on, let's get off the beach, people. You know, there's kids and everything, and it was pretty bad. I mean, the lightning was cracking everywhere. People were just totally ignoring it.
Is that on Sunday?
Sunday, yes, exactly. Sunday and Monday.
And we had that down here. That was the same, you know, probably the same group of storms, because I was in Dataw, which isn't that far. You know, really, and we could see intense cloud-to-ground lightning. I mean, we were sort of surprised they hadn't blown the horn. We were all kind of working our way back toward the clubhouse before they blew the horn, because we're like, this is not good.
Right.
And I had the same experience outside Savannah on Saturday. The group of people I was with, the storms were coming closer and closer within miles, and they were still. It wasn't until it started raining that they decided to seek shelter.
Yeah.
Smith, you touched on a lot there, and I want to talk a little bit about technology and the necessity to keep the public informed. And I'm just kind of curious, this is kind of, I guess, a chicken and an egg scenario here, but is it the technology that drove the passion and the ability to do severe weather coverage like we can do it now wall-to-wall with radars and helicopters and chase vehicles, or was it the desire and the need to do that coverage that pushed the technology to evolve?
Well, I think it's both. I think the public is incredibly interested in this because it's the one story that pretty much affects everybody, and the ability to adapt the technology to be able to explain. I mean, I've learned a great deal about weather simply by watching, capable meteorologists like you guys on TV. And it's really interesting to me because I was never trained in meteorology, but from a news point of view, I had to be involved in it, and I have a pretty good idea what happens. And I understand, I have a fairly good understanding, not certainly scientific understanding, but a good lay understanding of storms, what's happening, why, that kind of thing. And but I think that there's a desire on the audience to know more, and I'm really I think as much interested at the ability to pinpoint severe weather locations these days. I think that's pretty amazing to do that, and just explaining things, explaining how tornadoes work. I saw and I don't know how this is generated, guys, and you probably do, but on Sunday, for example, I looked at the future radar. You can look on the Weather Channel or look on some of the other sites for the predictions for the future radar. And the future radar prediction for Sunday afternoon was that there would be heavy thunderstorms over the Data Island area. And about 1:30 Sunday afternoon, that's where they were and that's where they parked. And that prediction I had read the night before. So I don't know how you guys come up with that stuff. That's pretty amazing that it was that accurate. And it seems to me that it should be difficult to predict it that accurately. Now, was that just because you're really good or lucky? I don't know.
It's a secret. We'd have to kill you if we told you.
Okay, well, that's fine. But you're good at it.
From your perspective, you talked about this before, and I thought the perspective was really good about how every generation is kind of, adapt or die when it comes to the new technology that comes out if you want to continue to compete and continue to thrive in the environment. There's a concern now with some in the broadcast and the news and the weather community that mobile weather apps, will kill out the local meteorologist. Somebody from your perspective that has seen the news landscape change time and time and time again, do you think the local weatherman should be threatened by a mobile app?
Well, not if they're good. I mean, you guys know John Weatherby. He's one of the weather guys down here in our Savannah market, and I've known John for years. In fact, his daughter Sarah was in our program at Georgia, James, and she has no interest in being in meteorology or TV news. But John is a very good weather reporter, forecaster, and the station. The two stations that I pay attention to, Channel 2 and Channel 11 down here, have quite accomplished weather people, and I pay attention to them, but I'm older, so I don't know if younger people don't even... one of my really good friends I was speaking to just before I got on this webcast is the Fox News bureau chief in Atlanta, and I've known him since the 70s when he was an intern at the TV station in Atlanta, and John was telling me that his kids don't even have TVs. They don't have television. They're everything they have is in the palm of their hand. They've got big old phones, and if they want to see anything, they look at it there. But his son and daughter-in-law don't even have a television. So in that way, yeah, I guess for young people like that not having a television, that does endanger the TV forecasters. But on the other hand, people want to know, they want to have somewhere to go, and I think if you're good. As a TV forecaster, you'd be good on the weather apps, right? I mean, aren't they part of that too? I mean, I'd have the WTOC weather app, and I look on that, and that's generated by John and Cutter Martin and the people that are doing the weather down here.
Yeah, we have the company Weatherflow. We have a whole series of apps that we work in and around. So we have a whole team of Mets. We have model forecasters, model designers, developing team, and the whole kit and caboodle. So we've learned to integrate with all of our apps and work on both at the same time, and it works out pretty good for us. So there's some meshing of the two. If you can do it successfully, luckily the company's been around for some time, so they've had all this time to go through the transition and figure it all out.
From Shay, on those apps, do you have like a personal representation on those apps where we see you or other people that work with you?
Yeah, so not physically see, but we have the pro forecast, for different regions around the United States. And like Southeast region would be one, and we cover from like Jekyll Island, Georgia, all the way to Ocracoke, North Carolina, where we actually do human forecasting. So we interpret the model data, but we don't necessarily just spit out the wind forecast for the area, and that's mainly what we do is wind forecasting, and that's you pretty much have to tie everything into it from a weather standpoint. So you get a whole model suite to look at for guidance, and then you get the actual human forecast to sort of discuss some other possibilities that could happen during each day.
Yeah, I think James didn't really answer your question. I think that they're complementary. I think your TV weather people are have a purpose and they get viewed, and I think the things that Shay does at WeatherFlow and applications like that, they're complementary. I mean, some people want more information, like the wind forecast. Shay, I'm glad to know that, because the wind forecast where I am here on HiltonNet, that's almost always wrong. They're very general about where the winds are, and I don't like being old and lazy. I don't like to ride my bike against the wind on the beach. So when I get out there expecting a southwest wind, and basically I get a southeast wind, and I'm like, okay, great, thanks.
Right, right. So you're getting, a lot of times you're getting your forecast based on an inland point, such as an airport, and then the models are designed from that standpoint, but they don't take into account a lot of what the sea or the land-sea interface is actually doing. So that's where we've sort of filled a niche with our apps and our human forecasting to sort of fill this gap right along the immediate coastline and sort of exact the forecast for those areas for anybody that's going out on the water. So it works out for us.
Is it a subscription app or?
It is free, but there is a subscription app too as well. That's for a lot more. You get more out of it. And
I just got a new big phone, so I'm loading apps. So thanks.
Sure.
There are some days in the newsroom that I know can be really challenging and really trying, but sometimes those are the days that we see the best accomplishment, the best team building, and I think it's sometimes these breaking news situations, bad weather scenarios where the team really comes together and really strives. Is there a moment in your career that sticks out in your mind like that, where you guys really owned the coverage and at the end of the day had A+ community service?
Well, the one I spoke of earlier, the tornado, the hurricane and Hurricane Hugo, where we did the thing with the helicopter shot, we repeated that a couple of years later in South Miami with Hurricane Andrew, and we owned that one too. Bruce Arian put the helicopter up right in Homestead, at the Homestead Air Force Base, and he said, I'm just going to fly west slowly for the next few minutes and not say anything to give you an idea of what it looks like here. And he did that for about 5 minutes without talking, and it was an silence is golden because there's so little of it, and it didn't need any description. You guys see that? You remember what those aerials look like of Homestead and west from Homestead? It was pretty devastating. And then, various snowstorms that we did in Atlanta. Covering winter weather in Atlanta was always a treat. I mean, I use that term loosely, but the key from being in the newsroom was planning. You had to make sure that people were with snow, because it made it much harder to get around. That people were positioned where they needed to be, that people had hotel rooms to stay in the night before it was going to snow at night. We would go up with the helicopter. The helicopter is extremely valuable tool for covering that sort of thing. And I guess drones, drones are must be amazing to you guys now, right? I mean, I've seen some drone shots with weather things, floods and things very recently. Pretty cool stuff. And that takes the place of the helicopter. You could be on the ground narrating what you see out of the drone. And that's, to me, the big thing that's happening right now in terms of visuals, is the ability to incorporate drone video. Can you go live out of the drones? They do that too, don't they?
You can, and at the end of August, it'll be officially legal for television stations or any other commercial entity to use them on air. So I think we'll see a lot more of that coming up, especially into November sweeps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ricky.
I already told my news director that we're planning on using that, and he was like, all right, we'll pay for whatever class you need to take. So.
Hey, great. What station are you with, Ricky?
WCYB. We are the NBC and Fox affiliate in Bristol, Tennessee, Tri-Cities area.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's especially the mountains. It's got to be cool, right? Because you can get places that are really hard to get to, right?
Mm-hmm. A perfect example the other day. We had a microburst move through my area, or more of a macro burst, I guess, with a line of storms. I took my quadcopter up there and flew it over it, and you could perfectly see how it was a microburst. You know, not a tornado. And I wish I could have used those pictures on air because they said the story perfectly, but I can't till now. So I had to resort to flying an actual airplane over it and getting.
So Ricky, what's the process for FAA approval now? Is it hard now, or did they grandfather you in?
Good question. It's still not officially set. There's still some paperwork and stuff that needs to be put out. Basically, what the FAA has done is they've come out and said that, hey, we're going to create this type of license. You are going to have to be a pilot and have some other type of certification, or you're going to have to take or get a drone license, per se. And so that paperwork is supposed to be finalized, as you mentioned, by sometime in August. And then hopefully we'll know how much the class costs, stuff like that, who's going to be eligible to take it, and then what other rules and stuff are involved in using these kind of things. But I think it's still kind of up in the air, pun intended, for figuring out exactly what's going to happen. But it's my hope that by at least September we'll have a very good handle on everything. So.
Wow, and that was free up until a certain point. Now you have to pay for your license, correct?
Well, I mean, to a degree. They haven't once again said if it's going to cost me anything for this type of license or not. What it used to be is you had to put in paperwork for a Section 333 exemption through the FAA. I don't know what that process was. I looked at it one time. It was pretty complicated and a lot of paperwork. But some larger companies did that. So now it's supposed to be a lot simpler. They're supposed to be putting something in there where, like, say, if you fly every day near an airport, you can have some type of agreement with the airport to where you don't have to call them up every time. If you want to fly near an airport, you can call them up like ahead of time if you don't have a previous agreement. And it's just going to, I think, make things simpler now that it's finally outlined and out there.
And I think like you said, Ricky, we've got to wait for kind of all that to come down the pipeline. I'm not convinced it's going to be ready by the end of August.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's the FAA. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, they told us we're going to have to take a test, which I imagine involves a testing facility, and we've got just weeks until this deadline approaches. Yeah. But like you said, September or
as you mentioned, like what currently the pilot stuff is. Like if you want to go become a private pilot, you have to go take the private pilot test at a certified FAA training facility where they got like cameras to watch you and someone administers the test to you. So I don't know if they're going to require people to go take it at one of those facilities, whether you'll be able to take it online or what the matter is. And if you have to go take it at a facility, I'd imagine there'll be some cost for that because you're using someone else's time, usually at a private airplane business, to do that.
I know for my ham radio license there was a filing fee. Go ahead, Steve.
Technologically, what is the circuitry that allows the video to be transmitted from the drone? What are they using, microwave, or what are the?
It's from what I believe you're asking. It's all Wi-Fi based. The way I get my picture back from my quadcopter to my phone or my tablet, it's all Wi-Fi, which is kind of amazing. It lasts that far out. Now, if you want to take your quadcopter much higher or further away, sometimes the signal will drop out. But the laws currently say it can't get higher than 400 feet or out of your view, and so by design, it usually sticks around pretty well in that range, but it just goes down to Wi-Fi, and then it sends it out via cell signal via your phone to Facebook Live or YouTube or whatever streaming service you're wishing to use. And conceivably, you could send it back to your station, or they could pick it up off a YouTube stream or something like that, and then rebroadcast it.
Now, to me, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
But as a journalist, I'm amazed by the internet access to information that we didn't have. I mean, when I was a kid, it was Encyclopedia Britannica. You find, and finding digging for information. You had to call, spend a lot of time on the telephone calling people. Now it's pretty easy to find out just about anything you want to find out.
You're saying theoretically now you should just be able to Google whether or not the speech you're about to give is plagiarism?
And even just
James went there.
through the dissemination of the information. Like when I used to do storm chasing for NBC Charlotte and stuff, they wanted just a straight raw feed to put on their website because people were asking for that. They kind of just, or even the chasers out in the plains, they just liked seeing that raw video. And it's, it's almost like watching I don't know, those webcams of the Eagles and stuff. People just like watching that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. Did you work with Sharon Houston up there in Charlotte? Did you work with Sharon Houston in Charlotte? She was at the NBC News channel there.
I never really had any run-ins with NBC News channel. Most of mine were at the local NBC there. This was about 2011 to 2015 time frame.
Smith, have you had a chance to take a drone out?
No, I've never. I guess I was with some folks who had some drone video on the beach down here the other day. Not the other day, last summer. It was really cool. He was flying it around in the trees and stuff. But no, I don't. That's something I haven't done.
We will fix that.
Yeah.
Next time I see you, I will bring my drone.
Let me know when you're coming to Savannah again, James. Okay.
I will. Yeah, this weekend's trip was a bit of a whirlwind because both the personal trip this weekend and the business trip were extremely last minute. But I will certainly let you know next time I'm down in that neck of the woods.
Sure.
9 o'clock now. I promised we'd get you out of here on time because I know we held you so late last time.
I don't remember. I'm retired. I don't really have that much to do except figure out what good British murder mystery I'm going to watch at night.
Steve, what's your favorite golf course down there in Hilton Head?
Good question. I really like. Harbortown's great, but it's so expensive. I don't play it very much. Heron Point, which is another one in Sea Pines where I live, I like a lot. Really the best bargain and the most fun golf course is Paris Island. We're at the Marine base. They've opened those up. It's out in the marsh. It's a fabulous golf course. I mean, it's great fun, and it's quiet except when they're having live fire exercises, and you just kind of ignore that. But that's really a fun course. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches. Some of the private courses here are really good. Colleton River's got 2 great courses. Long Cove is a terrific course. The Robert Trent Jones and the Hills course at Palmetto Dunes, really sporty courses. There are really a lot of them down here.
Very cool. I may be coming down that way to do some scouting for a new weather station sometime soon, so I'll bring the clubs with me and connect with you.
Would you please, Shay? I'm always looking for. We're always getting games with people, and for a lot of us, it's I'm not into a lot of high dollar golf, but of course I was playing a Datog called Cotton Dyke where they used to grow cotton up there. That was a great course, but that's quite a ways away. Fripp Island's got some nice places. I think Harbortown, Long Cove, and Secession up near Beaufort are probably 3 of the highest rated courses down here, other than Ocean Course up there. I mean that's super on Kiowa. But you've got
we'll do a weather show, guys, from the golf course. We'll play.
Well, it's a big deal, The weather's a bit. Lightning is certainly a factor, and all that. But Shay, we'll figure out. James can email me your contacts and email you mine, and we can get together because I'm hosting golf all the time here. It's
Absolutely.
Fun. Great. It's a great game.
And speaking of contact information, we'd like to give our guests a chance at the end to a lot of times promote their social media platforms. But what's the best way, if there is a way, if somebody listening to the podcast wants to reach out to you and ask more about your experience?
My social media platform. Email. Just good old email.
Say, send a postcard to P.O. Box.
Yeah, I have a P.O. Box. You want my email? It's
That's up to you. It's going to go on YouTube, so that's up to you.
Real easy. Steve Smith 2004 at Comcast.net.
And there we have it.
And I'm also on Facebook. That's my social platform. But I don't Twitter. I just it's too crowded. Donald Twitter's enough for all of us, so I don't bother.
I thought that's what you were talking about when you said you're just trying to figure out what murder mystery to watch tonight. The convention?
I'm going to pass on that. I've been to many. Hey, I went to the
Where's my
70.
buzzer? I'm going to start using the buzzer like Span does. When we talk about politics, I'm going to use that instead of talking about climate change.
Good idea.
I see our friend Scotty has unmuted his microphone, and let's see if he is, in fact... We're going to do this right for once, Scotty. Scotty, do you have a list of what's coming up next week on the Carolina Weather Group?
That's to be determined.
All right.
It's a secret show. But I can tell you who's coming on after that, August the 4th. We're going to be joined by Brad Panovich of NBC Charlotte. And we're going to be talking about microburst and straight line wind. As Ricky alluded to just a little bit earlier, that's kind of been a hot topic around the Carolinas and over the Southeast, even down in Georgia and places like that. So we're going to talk about the straight line wind and microbursts and just how dangerous they can be and how people sometimes can confuse them for tornadoes. And hopefully by the end of that show, everybody will have a better idea of the kind of dangerous thunderstorms that we get here in the Southeast. We're also working on a couple other shows of getting some folks in. One being Mark Mathis, who used to be a meteorologist there in the Charlotte area, who's moved out to San Diego. So Mark may be coming on in the month of August, as well as I have my notes in front of me, but I know I have a few contacts out there, so we'll just have to see if they answer. But that leaves me to say, if you guys watching or listening on the podcast, if you have any topics that you would love to talk about, please send us a tweet or a message or something like that, and we'll definitely work on getting some people on the show and talking about the topics that you want to hear about. So we're an open forum, so whatever you want to talk about weather-wise or anything in that realm, we'll definitely do. So sorry I can't provide you a show next week. We just don't have a lot going on. It may have to be an open mic night, and I'm sure that that'll be okay by us. I'm sure there'll be something to talk about weather-wise, and we'll make it.
You know what next week's show needs to be, Scotty? We need to get Joey back on here and have the return of Joey next week on this show. That could be a show alone.
So I heard Joey's in Facebook jail this week for something. So we need to figure out what that's all about. But yeah. So if you have anything you want us to talk about next week, shoot us a message and we'll see if we can work something up. If not, we'll definitely get it on in the next weeks after that. And maybe Ricky can talk about his adventures that he got to do over the weekend as well. That was pretty cool. So maybe we can talk about that next week. And
I would love to, but I will be in a tent in Wisconsin.
Oh, that's right. You're going to the air show. I forgot about that.
Next week's the air show, where we'll probably have like derechos or something rolling through rivers today, because that's how my life goes when I go to these things. So we'll see.
There's always severe weather up there.
There is, which is awesome too, because I'm camping this year, so I'm taking pictures of lightning above storms and then running into my safe shelter. But like every good meteorologist does.
Yeah, not the tent.
We'll have to get some stories about that. But yeah, and maybe open mic night. We may take a little break. We'll talk about it and definitely let you know via our social media outlets what's going on this week. Sorry, James. I know I just totally butchered that, but.
Well, we do have the Brad Panovich show coming up on August the 3rd, and we have lots of microburst material to talk about from just this summer alone. So if nothing else, put that on your calendar.
We should try to get lightning is what we should try to get somebody on for next week. That's one of the least understood topics in meteorology, and I think it'd be great, especially all the talk about lightning and all the storming going on. So I don't know, just an idea to throw out there.
I had somebody on my flight just the other day point out the window to me and say, "Did you see that heat lightning?" And I
really that's the show that we're gonna do.
Yeah, exactly. Ricky's got it right. He's got the right thing.
Yeah,
I decided not to correct her, but.
Speaking of Joey, he just texted me, so evidently he's watching us tonight. So.
All right. Good to know our friend Joey. Never all too far. Steve, thank you again for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope I didn't talk too much. I mean, it seemed like you guys didn't get to talk much, but.
No, I think that's how these things are set up. We come here, we pick your brain, we let you tell all of the great tales you guys want to talk about. But before we sign off, I will say, does anybody else on the panel have anything else they want to ask before we attempt to stop tonight's show because, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have a dashboard. So we may just have to sit here all night.
You know, we could out-Roper this and just do the longest podcast in history, like the longest weathercast in history or something. We could just start going. I mean, I don't have to be at work until Sunday, so.
I think Kent and James and I hit that last week on we watched storms go all the way from the mountains to the coast of North Carolina.
And we can have like 3-minute bathroom breaks like Al did too on his show where you got to run back and forth.
Hey, I do have some. I know we're not supposed to talk about politics, but I thought this was pretty cool, and I was going to bring it up earlier in the show, but didn't get my tweet pulled up in time. But I don't know if you guys saw this today, but President Obama actually tweeted out a heat index forecast for the weekend, and I thought that was pretty cool. So he's saying this map says it all. Stay safe as it heats up. Drink water, stay out of sun, and check on your neighbors. So even the big heat wave is getting to President Obama's desk, and he's tweeting about it. So take shelter this weekend and stay out of the heat, I guess, right?
I'm just very impressed the president didn't tweet out like, you know, weather.com or something like that, because that would be embarrassing.
That was legit, total legit source.
Yeah.
That's great.
It was National Weather Service and everything. Not every day do you have the president tweeting about weather, so there you go. Pretty cool.
All right, well, I will give this behind-the-scenes editorial note. I'm going to attempt to stop the broadcast. It may kick us all out, which means for us we won't have our after-show banter, or we may just be stuck here. I'm not sure.
People should watch that, you know? People should watch our after-show banter. That's quite funny sometimes.
That's true. Thanks for joining us. If you're looking to take us on the go, you can download our podcast. Of course, we're here live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and something called Google+, which was an old relic of a social media network. You can follow us there and find out about our upcoming shows.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Smith. Always good to talk with you.
Good to talk to you guys, too. I always learn something. Good luck with the drones, Ricky.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Maybe we need to do a drone show.
Yeah, I mean, we could. I mean, let's wait till we get everything finalized, and then we'll talk about doing weather photography with drones, which
There you go.
we've done.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week right here on the Carolina Weather Group.
Bicycle?
We're still live.
The only way to do it is if James shuts his computer down, I'm afraid.
I think, honestly, though, if all of us close out the browser, it'll end. So either that or it could just go black and continue for years and years.
It honestly might do
We're still live, aren't we?
We're still
live.
live. FCC standards are still in place.
So, is this the bonus part of the show?
we can see you, James.
There's nothing. Well, I had this on standby the whole time. This is another computer that I was actually just watching the show on, but I was afraid to hit any buttons out of concern that I would accidentally stop the show before I meant to. But
well, hit buttons away now.
There's nothing there's nothing open on my computer. How?
Yeah, I have a question, even though we're live. Maybe someone watching this can answer for us. Is there a way, like with Facebook Live, is there a way that we can broadcast our show via Facebook Live on our Facebook page?
That's I think a question we've been looking to conquer. Ricky is shaking his head yes.
There is, yeah. I don't know. I can take you the software. I think I gave it to Shay already. It's called Open Broadcast Software, and that's what Panovich is using. That's what Tim Buckby is using. That's what I'm using at CYB. And it's possible. It takes a little bit of configuration, but I could probably run it on my back computer, as we do this. So.
Yeah, Ricky, I don't know. I need to get with you on the side on how to install that on a machine, because I think the only thing I could see was how to use it through your phone. It was kind of, I don't know. It's kind of weird. But yeah, it seems like it's a great program. Just need some guidance on it.
Yeah. I got some stuff to do the next couple of days, but shoot me a message sometime, and I'll get to it. I promise.
Yeah,
it's a busy time
I might hit you up there too. once whether things calm down and I get back from vacation.
And it should be pretty simple for you, David. I mean, literally all I installed it on our Max box using the admin stuff, and then I route it through there. It took a little bit of configuration because it said I didn't have like the updated Windows codec and stuff. So I was like, all right, well, I'll download those too. But as long as you have the admin password for Max, and if you don't, they're all the same, so I can give it to you.
I was going to say I don't have Max, so there you go.
Well, then I can't help.
I have Fusion Studio, so I mean it still runs off Windows.
Wouldn't shock me if WSI had the same password, just changing the name for that kind of stuff. But who knows? All right, y'all. Well,
I guess we are really televising this after-show discussion.
We are, yeah.
Hey, why not?
Why not? I'd give a little tour of my setup here, but it's a mess, so we'll have to save that for another time.
Just show your soundboard again.
You want to see the soundboard again?
All right, later, Ricky.
Yeah.
See, I'm attached to so many cables.
I'm waiting for the day that James says he's a cyborg.
The big gray thing is the drone, and the thing in the foreground is the soundboard right over here.
I'm glad you have such an understanding wife, James.
Well, that's the other thing. I'm going to hop off here because I actually haven't seen her since like Friday. So, but I don't know.
Diligence.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Good show.
Sky, if you want to create another link, I don't know how to create another one for off live. But
I'm not.
I think once we all bail out, it would stop. If not, I'm fresh out of ideas. Although I will say this: Google did something weird and disappeared off my computer, but luckily it continued to do the camera switches with the audio. So,
gotcha. All right. Well, I'm gonna bail out and then click back in after everybody else is out. See what happens.
Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Later, guys.
Oh god.
Now I can't find my mouse.